Hi guys, Darth Deuce here with another video, and today we're going to be talking some DC Multiverse from McFarlane Toys. And today I have in front here the Last Night on Earth Build-A-Figure Wave, which is the Bane Build-A-Figure Wave, the second Build-A-Figure Wave that McFarlane Toys has put out. The first one being the Merciless Build-A-Figure Wave, which I actually did complete and build that figure. I never did a review on that wave, but if any of you guys are interested in seeing a review on that wave, let me know in the comments below, and I'd be happy to do that video because it'd be fun to talk about those figures. But I haven't bothered to make the video, and they're kind of an old wave now, so I don't know. But yeah, let me know if there's an interest in that. But we're talking right now about the Last Night on Earth, which is relatively recently released wave, and it's kind of an interesting wave of figures because it's a wave that I went back and forth on a lot. When they were first announced, I was pretty interested in picking them up, and then later on taking a look at the promo images and then seeing some earlier reviews and whatnot, I wasn't sure if I wanted to get the wave anymore. But then I got Omega around a couple of weeks ago at this point, and I really like that figure a lot. It really impressed me. So I ended up caving, just buying the whole wave because also the Bane looked really cool. And yeah, there's a lot to like in this wave. Obviously, it's more Batman. I know we're getting a lot of Batman. We do get some more different characters, though. Like, we get Bane, we get Scarecrow, we get a Wonder Woman. So, yeah. But anyways, I want to take a look at the whole wave. First off, I will just show the collector cards really quick. You get a card with each figure, with the exception of Bane, of course, because he's the Build-A-Figure. But yeah, here's the card for Scarecrow, which is the art of one of the comic covers, I believe, which also has Bane on it, which I think is cool, that we get a card with the actual BAF on it. There is the Wonder Woman that comes from the pages of the comic, the Batman in the straitjacket suit, which is from the comic, and Omega, which is also from the comic. So these are pretty cool. And then every figure, with the exception of Bane, comes with a figure stand. Scarecrow comes with the flight stand. The rest come with the standard black stand. So yeah, let's take a look at these figures. First off, let's take a look at the straitjacket Batman, not Bane, because he's kind of the main character, I suppose. If you haven't read the comic book series, it's been out for a while. I'm not going to watch my spoilers, so if you don't want this comic book to be spoiled, I guess don't watch. But it's a really cool. In my opinion, I really like the comic book. It's just a 3-issue, little Elseworlds run. I think it's really cool. Kind of like Mad Maxy, kind of Mad Max-like. So that's cool if you like that sort of thing. But here we have the straitjacket Batman, and he is pretty cool. I like how he's wearing like this. The straitjacket makes sense if you read the comic. I'm not going to get all into that. But it's kind of cool how they made like these like mental hospital outfit kind of into a bat suit. The cowl is like shock therapy cap, which I think is cool. The ears are like straps going up. And I think the head sculpt is really good. And like with McFarlane, all their figures, they do a good job with the sculpt and paint. That's their big thing. And you've got the Wayne logo, kind of looks like a bat on the front there. And you got like little rips and tears in the actual suit. It's also decently bulky because it's a padded straitjacket. I like how on the forearms here you got these straps, and they kind of have these makeshift little batwing blade things like he usually has on his gauntlets. I think that's really cool. I'll get the light in here better so we can get a better look. You got the belt here. I like how the straps for the straitjacket kind of make a makeshift cape. I think that's really cool. And just some really decent details and sculpt. McFarlane always does a really good job with their sculpts and whatnot. Articulation wise, he's pretty decent as well. You got a decent range in the head. Shoulders move quite well, honestly. Elbows, my left elbow, and I've seen this on some other people's figures, is kind of loose, which is kind of unfortunate, but you do have double hinges in the elbows and the McFarlane style hinges in the wrists. There is a torso joint, but it doesn't get a ton of movement because of the overlay for the straitjacket suit. And you have your hips, which move out a decent amount. They are a little hindered by that lower part of the jacket. Not really any rotation up there, though, unfortunately. You do have double hinges in the knees, which, again, on the bottom hinge is a little on the loose side, and also they're kind of ugly looking. You get quite a bit of gappage and breaking of the sculpt, which is Doesn't bother me that much, but it's worth noting. And then you have the ankle hinges and pivots, which work pretty well. And accessory-wise for old Batman here, he does have the nightstick or the police baton, which is very cool. He holds it very well, and you can also store it in this little loop on his belt. And he also comes with the Joker head in a jar, which is a really weird part of the story. I don't know how, this doesn't make any sense, but it's comic books, and comic books often don't make sense. But it's a cool accessory nonetheless. You got that kind of cool orange fade on it. You get the Joker head inside, which I don't think looks really like how Joker looked in that story, but it still is obviously Joker, so it doesn't really bother me that much. And again, he holds it really well, and it's just a really cool little accessory that he has. It's very unique, and honestly a pretty unique take on Batman as well. So he's pretty cool. I wouldn't say anything special, but he's pretty cool. Next up, let's talk about Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, like I said, or I think I said, maybe I didn't, is the first comic book styled Wonder Woman that McFarlane Toys has done in the Multiverse line. I think they've done a pretty good job here. It is sort of a unique look to the story. She's got a few different things going on, although still very similar to, your contemporary look for Wonder Woman. One of the things I like about her the most is the scaling and size is pretty well done. She is taller than like Batman, and she's definitely a bit thicker build-wise, which she should be. She's Amazon, and I think they should be a bit bigger than the average character, so I like that a lot about her. I'll stand her up a bit more straight here so we can kind of get a better sense of the scale here in a second. But she's very cool. The head sculpt, I like what they did. I think the face is really cleanly painted and looks pretty good. She's got the mohawk going on. One thing I'm not a huge fan of is the stubble that they put in here in the actual comic and in the picture on the card, which I can actually show again real quick. She's like completely clean shaven except for the mohawk, so I don't know why they made the stubble there. They kind of went too much extra detail, but it doesn't look awful. I just would prefer they didn't do that. She has this cloak going on, which unfortunately is not the most pliable, especially at the top. It's basically completely stiff and can hinder a little bit of articulation, but she can still get her arms up pretty good. And her articulation, is pretty similar to the rest, although she has nice double hinges in the elbows. They move all the way in, which is awesome. And you've got a better torso articulation here, so she gets a better range there because there's not anything really hindering, which is nice. My only real complaints with articulation with this one is the ankles. They need to figure out how to better implement ankles on female characters with the heel style shoes, because basically the pin goes just completely downwards, so the pivot's almost useless, and you have to finagle the joint to actually get a good pivot. It's annoying. You can still get good pivot, but it's just more effort than it should have to be. But I think she looks really good. You have to be a fan of this look for Wonder Woman, of course, but I think it's solid. Accessory-wise, she does come with the sword, which the sword looks good. It's nicely painted and sculpted. For some reason, they made the sword blade like as thick as a piece of paper, and it's also a really, really flimsy plastic in terms of it's really bendy and pliable, so it can warp pretty easily, so I'd be careful of that. But besides that, it's pretty good. She does have a sheath. I don't like how they made the sheath open on the inside. I don't know why they've been doing that with sword characters with sheaths. I don't like it. It looks ugly. Luckily, you're not going to see it most of the time, so it doesn't matter that much. It's kind of a nitpick, honestly, but I still don't like it. But it's on. It can rotate. You might even be able to remove it if you want to. It's probably just on a mushroom peg or something. But you can sheathe the sword in there, and it fits in there nice and securely. No problems there. It looks pretty decent. This little knife on her belt, unfortunately, isn't removable, but you can rotate it out of the way if you want. I do wish it came with more accessories, like a lasso of truth would be good, because she did use that. Alternate pairs of hands, so you can have two fist hands maybe. Also, I wish it came with alternate head sculpt. There is a variant of this figure coming out where she has the Dr. Fate helmet on, which she wore briefly in the comic. I wish that was an interchangeable head sculpt instead of being a variant, but it looks like McFarlane's going to stick to making different head sculpts variants over being accessories, which is unfortunate. I'll give you a sense of the scale of the figure. I would say this Batman in the straight coat is and straight jacket rather, is a pretty standard 7-inch scale with the Multiverse line. And as you can see, Wonder Woman's a little bit taller, which I like that. I think she should be. But she's taller without being so tall where it doesn't make sense, so I like that a lot. And yeah, I think she's a solid figure. She's not amazing. I am really looking forward to that death metal Wonder Woman that's coming out in like a month or two. I think that'll be a better figure, but this one's still pretty cool if you like this look. Now, let's move on to Omega. And Omega was a really big surprise for me. This figure is really good. If you want a figure that really showcases what McFarlane Toys can do with their articulation, this is the figure to get. This guy is such a joy to pose and play around with. He poses really easily, really naturally, just moves into poses, if you know what I mean by that. He's a blast to pose. Looks really good. I love the profile he cuts. Love the head sculpt on there, and I just love the design of the suit in general. It's kind of Batman Beyondish in a way. It looks awesome. All the sculpt details. These lines on the torso are actually sculpted details, not just painted. On the legs and arms, unfortunately, they are just painted on. Oh yeah, he looks really good. He poses really nicely. He's got this little cape here, which kind of seems kind of pointless, but it's still a cool part of the design. Accessories, he is a little light. He has 2 fist hands, which I really like. I think pretty much every character should come with 2 fist hands for comic book characters. Comes with an open hand, which is nice, but then he comes with a trigger grip hand, which makes no sense. I would have preferred 2 open hands as opposed to a grip hand when he doesn't come with anything to grip on. It would have been cool if he came with the stake that has the dark side head on it. I think that would have been a cool accessory, but that might have went a bit beyond the budget. So I understand that. But he poses, like I said, really, really nicely. I'll get him into a quick pose here maybe. The only real issue I have is for some reason on my copy personally, the left arm likes to pop off of the bicep swivel joint really easily if you put force on it. I don't know why it does that. It just pops back on. It doesn't break or anything, which is nice, but it's kind of weird that it does that. But yeah, you can pretty easily put him in some pretty awesome poses. That's just kind of a basic action pose, but pretty cool stuff. Like I said, this guy really blew me away a lot. I really like this Omega figure. I was not expecting to like it that much, but he's kind of the reason why I bought the rest of the wave. He's really, really good. So yeah, if you want a figure that showcases what McFarlane can do with their articulation, he's the one to go on. But he's really solid. There's not a whole lot to talk about. He's probably one of the simplest figure out of all of these. And next up, there is Scarecrow. I'm going to take him off the display base here. It's just the standard flight stand, which they did because he doesn't have legs. He is half a figure, but it does kind of make up for it in all the sculpt detail, and also the fact he's a new character in the Multiverse line. It's always awesome to get a new Batman villain. We don't usually get too many Scarecrow figures, and he's one of my favorite Batman villains, so I think this is awesome. He's just this crazy looking version of him. He's got no legs with the spinal cord and tailbone hanging off there. Got like the all rat-tattied coat. This is really up McFarlane's alley. He's really this crazy monster looking guy. He's got these crazy robotic braces for his hands that have these crazy long fingers that have the fear toxins and syringes, and it's got a little red there for the fear toxin and the syringes, which is awesome. The head sculpt is really crazy. He's got this weird red bag thing on his head. I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it's like a helmet or if it's like a bag. It's kind of sculpted to look like a bag. He's got the noose around his neck. Got this little I don't know what this is supposed to be, oxygen tank or something on there. You can't actually take this off. It just kind of opens up like an Easter egg, I guess, or something like that. It opens up and you can completely take it off if you want. I'm just going to hang the rest off the head. But you get a better look at the crazy sculpted detail on this figure. It looks awesome. I love the expression. He's yelling or whatever. He's got red eyes, got gore and crazy gnarled teeth. The tongue is sculpted and painted. Got crazy looking hair. And underneath there, you got his guts and skeletal rib cage and whatnot. I don't even know how this guy is alive, but like I said, comic books rarely make sense, so I guess it's okay. It can be a little, actually it's not really that hard to get the bag thing back on. It's pretty easy to do. The kind of you do kind of have to line it up correctly. There's the little pipe actually goes into the back of his head. And if you don't get that in right, it's not gonna, there. And then you can finagle there's a little tab in the back there. You can actually plug the noose in. I'll do that later. But yeah, articulation wise, he doesn't have the whole half of his body, but you do have decent range in the head, honestly. Shoulders move a good range amount. elbows are decent. They move about 90. The wrists are on hinges, and the pairs of the fingers, these two and these two, are fused together, but you can hinge them, these two, independently, if you get what I'm talking about here. So that's pretty cool. One little unfortunate thing though is because in the packaging, these fingers do get kind of warped out of shape, so I kind of have to try to fix them because they're kind of all messed up. And then actually something they didn't even need to really have to do, down here you can actually shift the tailbone back and forth, which I think is kind of cool to kind of simulate some more motion, which is awesome. You can also, because he does it in the comic a bit, he does actually walk on the metal, on the syringes. You can kind of do that with this figure, but the fingers aren't the most, they're a little pliable, so they're probably going to warp under the weight, unfortunately. I also like this little detail on the forearms. He's kind of got little Batman blades on his forearms, which I think is kind of cool as well. But yeah, Scarecrow is actually pretty awesome. For being half a figure, I would not discount this guy for being worth the price. They definitely put a lot of love into this guy, 100%. The Scarecrow is really cool if you like this version. That's enough on the actual wave. Let's talk about the bath, because there's a decent amount to talk about here. We've got Bane, big old Bane, and I know a lot of people were hoping that this Build-A-Figure would kind of be a good version to use for kind of their main Bane in their collection. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the case, at least not without a lot of customization, because there's good things about this figure. There's some pretty bad things about this figure too, unfortunately. First of all, scale-wise, that's one of the good things about him. He's big, but not too big. He's a good head and a half, maybe even almost 2 heads taller than, Batman here. And I think the scale here is pretty good. Aside from being tall, he's also very wide, very just bulky. He's a heavy figure, like he's got weight to him, which is awesome. And he just is really imposing on the shelf and on display. He looks awesome. The paint and sculpt details are also really good. I love the mask, how he's got like the Batman logo for the white around the eyes instead of just being like around the eyes, which is really cool, kind of different take on his mask. And then the costume itself, very similar to, a quote-unquote classic Bane look. With the tank top, it has some cuts and tears in it. It's actually a separate piece from the torso. The sculpting of the torso and the paint is really well done as well. Unfortunately, my issue with that is for some reason they made his skin tone gray. And I think it's because they based it off of the cover art, where in the lighting and how it's drawn and inked, it looks like his skin is gray, but in the comic, his skin is actually a normal, skin tone. It's not zombie gray or tombstone gray, which doesn't really make any sense. They also didn't put the green paint details for in his veins for the Venom. I think that would have been a cool detail that they didn't do, so that's a little unfortunate. There is some other cool paint apps though. The belt looks really good. The boots and the legs, he's got some pouches going on, look great. He's got the Venom delivery system on his forearm. You got the green for the Venom in the cords, which looks really cool as well. He's got these big hands with the reinforced knuckles, which looks awesome. So I think that is pretty cool. No accessories. Build-A-Figures don't usually come with accessories. But 2 of the major issues. 1, building this figure was a pain in the ass. The legs, I was actually able to get the right leg in, or no, left leg in without heating it up. I had to heat up the right leg. It would not go in with it otherwise. The hands also had to heat them up to get them to go in all the way. Not a huge deal, but I shouldn't have to heat up the pieces to get them to go in correctly. And I've heard some people have figures that literally just fall out. That's not good. But with mine, at least, once heating them up and putting them in, they don't really come out, except for the legs if you force the articulation. And that moves on to the next point. The articulation on this figure, unfortunately, sucks. We're kind of going to the infamous part of McFarlane Toys stuff. They've gotten a lot better with articulation. Bane's unfortunately not one of those. The points are there, but they're restricted by some really stupid design choices. The head's good. It actually pivots and moves down quite a bit and moves up a little bit. The head articulation is not bad. The shoulder articulation is good. He's actually got some crazy ratchet joints, and they actually move past 90, and they rotate. He's got hinges in the elbows, which don't move 90, but they don't bend too bad, if I'm being honest. And he has swivels and hinges at the wrists. So the articulation, upper articulation, aside from the torso does rotate, but you only get a little bit of pivoting and barely any crunching or backing because of how it's designed. But aside from that, the upper articulation of the waist up is actually not bad. But then we get to the hips, and for whatever reason, they did the same thing that they did with the Crow Robin. They put a rubber overlay over the crotch piece and where the thighs would connect to the legs, and it is not a pliable plastic. It just completely limits any articulation. The joints are in there. You can kind of see them, but you can barely get any movement. You get a little bit of shifting. You really cannot move them forward. They barely move forward. They actually move back further than they move forward. They barely move out. Like, you basically can barely move the leg. And unfortunately, if you can't move the leg at the hip, you basically kill the rest of the articulation. Because I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this because they're really tight joints. Oh my god, I can't even move that. They're so tight. That's another issue. Some of these joints are way too tight, so I'm not even going to move it. But holy shit. Like, that's what I'm just talking about. It's crazy trying to articulate these. But the knees and ankles actually have some decent articulation, but you can't use it because the hips don't move. So that is unfortunate. And that's really a big problem. I know a lot of people were hoping this Bane to be pretty good, and Bane needs to be able to articulate. You can still pose them, you know, you can get the legs out a little bit, you know, you can bend the arm, you can bend that, and kind of, holy Jesus, and kind of get a bit of posing going on. Like, that's a okay pose, but that's about as dynamic as you're going to get, and that is kind of unfortunate. I'm not gonna lie to you, that is unfortunate. But despite having major flaws, and I don't say that often about figures, if you watch my channel, I do not usually rip figures apart too much. They're not usually figures that have tons of flaws. Unfortunately, Bane has some pretty crazy flaws, but despite that, and I don't know if I'm giving McFarlane a bit too much slack here, but despite having these major flaws, I still really like this Bane figure. I still think it looks awesome. And I love having it in the collection. I don't know. It's still not a great figure in some regards. If you want to articulate Bane figure, this figure sucks. Straight up, if you want to articulate Bane, this figure sucks. But one cool thing you can do, display-wise at least, is like in the comic. Well, I don't think he does this in the comic, but you can flip out this little peg on Scarecrow's torso. Bane has a hole back there. You can plug in Scarecrow, and then you can recreate him riding Bane's back, and that's a really cool feature. That looks awesome. I do wish the peg was maybe a bit higher up. I do kind of wish he was a bit more over his shoulder. You get a better look at Scarecrow, but that is awesome. I do like that a lot. Now, this video is running really long. I do apologize for that, but we are talking about a whole wave here, and if you're still with me, I appreciate it. But let's do some comparisons with Bane here. We already compared him with, standard 7-inch scale figure. So if we're going to grab the previous McFarlane Build-A-Figure, the Merciless, which I absolutely love, and they are a comparable size. Bane is bulkier, Merciless is a little taller, but yeah, I think these guys are worthy backs, at least in terms of size and, the amount of plastic you're getting. So that's kind of how they scale up. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Then with a Bane versus Bane comparison, this is the only other Bane I have that would fit in a 7-inch, 6-inch scale collection is the Storm Collectibles Injustice Gods Among Us Bane, which I haven't messed with in a little while. And as you can see, the Storm Collectibles one's taller. The McFarlane one's actually thicker. He's wider. He's much bigger in that regard. And picking them up, the McFarlane one's actually heavier. The McFarlane one has more plastic to him. But this one's taller, which is something I'm actually not a huge fan of. But yeah, if you want a super articulated Bane figure and you want to spend the money, I would get and you don't mind the look, I would get the Injustice Bane. He's so much better articulated. And I think he's in general a better figure. But like I said, I still like the build figure. But yeah, that kind of gives you a look at some different Banes. I don't have any other Banes, unfortunately, aside from the Injustice 2 Hiya Toys 1/18 scale one, but I don't really think there's a point in comparing those two. So yeah, that is the last night on Earth DC Multiverse Build-A-Figure wave, or Build-A-Bane wave. I think objectively, it's a solid wave. There are definitely issues. The Build-A-Figure is disappointing in some major ways. It's also impressive in some good ways. All the figures in the wave, I think, are solid. Some of them have some issues, or they all have maybe some minor issues, but there's nothing too crazy going on here. Now, whether you should buy this wave, that kind of is up to you. If you like these different designs on these characters, and or you're a fan of the Last Night on Earth comic series, then I'd say yes, this is 100% a wave that you will enjoy. If you do not like these designs, you don't care about the comic book series, then it's an easy pass wave. There's nothing here really for you in that regard, because if you don't like the designs, you don't like the designs. You're not going to like the figures. And if you have no connection to the comic book series as well, you're not going to like the wave. Now, for rating these figures from best to worst, it's kind of difficult, honestly. I know which my two favorites are, and then after that, it's kind of difficult. My least favorite, if I'm going to be honest, I was going to say Wonder Woman, but I'm going to say the Straight Jacket Batman. It's a great figure, and maybe even objectively better than that Wonder Woman figure, but it's just one of those figures where I like having it. I'm happy to have it in the collection, but I didn't need it in the collection. Then the next one is going to go to the Wonder Woman. I think there are some improvements that could be made to that figure. Not my number one favorite look for her, but I think the figure is still really well done. I have a fun time posing it. And it's the first Wonder Woman in the collection for Multiverse, so I really still like that figure. Next up is the Scarecrow. He looks awesome. The sculpt work is great. I love how he can be used with Bane. He is still half a figure, and it feels like if you're going to get Scarecrow, you almost have to get the rest of the wave so he can go with Bane. He's kind of meant to be with Bane. Then after that, I'm going to go with the Bane Build-A-Figure. I know I kind of ripped him up, and he's got some major issues, but I can't help it. I still really, honestly, really love the figure. Or I may not love it, but I still really, really like it. It's still really awesome. Bane is one of my favorite DC villains, so it is kind of hard to be... I'm being pretty subjective, but he's still really awesome. And then my favorite's Omega. Omega's a surprise. I didn't think he'd be my favorite of the wave. I think he's maybe the best figure of this wave, and he's just super, super good. I love posing him. He's just awesome. Anyways, this video is very long. I'm sorry about that. I like rambling on, talking about this stuff. And hopefully you enjoy watching and listening to me ramble on about this stuff. If you're still with me, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about this wave down in the comments below. I'm interested to hear if you guys are going to be picking these guys up, picking up some of these guys, not picking these up, all that sort of stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow me on my Instagram, where I post usually every day, at least once, and that link will be in the description down below. Again, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.